So I've noticed something extraordinary people have in common. And by extraordinary people, I mean the type of people who we think of as geniuses. Isaac Newton spent months in isolation staring at an apple tree. Einstein took long, solitary walks where he'd think about nothing in particular. Kanye West created some of his best music in isolation, away from the noise. J.K. Rowling conjured Harry Potter during a boring train ride. And Steve Jobs took walks in nature, no phone and no agenda. We typically think of these people as geniuses, but most of them weren't born geniuses. They don't have better genetics, they don't have access to more information, and they certainly don't work harder than you do. But they have something else, something that they've leveraged to get extraordinary results in life: boredom. Long stretches of uninterrupted, unstimulated time where their minds could wander. While everyone else was busy seeking constant entertainment, they were doing the opposite. And that's exactly where their breakthroughs came from. But if boredom is where genius lives, why do we run from it? The answer is simple but shocking. As it turns out, your brain hates boredom. That's not a surprise. I hate boredom as much as you do. But your brain hates it so much that it would rather you hurt yourself just to avoid it. And not kidding. In 2014, researchers at the University of Virginia ran an experiment. They put people alone in a room with nothing but their thoughts for 15 minutes. No phone, no books, no distractions, just them and their mind. Before they started, the researchers gave them an option. They could press a button to receive a mild electric shock. You'd think nobody would do it, right? Who in their right minds would want to choose pain over boredom? But as it turns out, 67% of men and 25% of women did it anyway. People literally preferred to hurt themselves rather than sit alone with their thoughts. That's how intolerable boredom has become. That's how much we've trained our brains to fear the one mental state where genius actually happens. Now, before I show you how to use this mental state to access genius level thinking, we first need to understand what boredom is. Boredom is an unlikely candidate when you ask someone what makes a genius, and few of us even understand what it really is. I mean, it seems like a simple enough thing, but until you sit and give it thought, you can't really define what boredom is, can you? And there is no universally accepted definition of boredom, but it can be defined as an uncomfortable feeling that occurs when there is a mismatch between the desire for meaningful mental engagement and the availability of stimulating options. The reason this happens is because humans evolved in environments where information was scarce and novelty was valuable. The brain developed a novelty-seeking system to motivate exploration. Now, way back in the past, boredom was rare because daily life forced sustained attention on survival tasks such as hunting, gathering, tool making, taking care of children and reproducing. Yes, even that. But in pre-modern civilizations, we still weren't boredom averse. In fact, many cultures welcomed it and saw it as an important part of life. Stoic philosophers such as Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius practice what's called paroshe, or mindful attention, and apatheia, which is freedom from disturbance. They deliberately sought quiet contemplation to examine thoughts. Now, if we look at medieval Europe, monks followed what's called the liturus horarum, or the divine office, with multiple silence periods throughout the day for prayer and contemplation. This was structured boredom for prayer and contemplation that was sacred and deliberately used for spiritual insight. So you see, these monks are using it as a tool. 19th century romantic poets such as Wordsworth wrote about a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings that arose from wanderings or quiet moments in nature, leading to poetic inspiration. All right, so if you're still with me, we can see that boredom was historically actually a tool used for creative insight, right? And now the problem we have with our modern world is that it has disabled this feature in our minds, and that's why we can't access deep levels of thought or deep levels of thinking. That's capping our genius potential. Our brains are evolutionarily wired to benefit from boredom, but modern technology has turned boredom into an uncomfortable, avoided state, which cuts off the very mental space where genius ideas are born. And the dopamine pathways in your brain are hijacked by artificial stimuli such as social media and endless scrolling. This modern overstimulation creates a perpetual wanting loop, and this is why it's so painful for you to entertain your boredom. So to alleviate the pain, you end up reaching for your phone without even realizing. You intend to spend 5 minutes scrolling and then you end up spending 20. You skip past that Instagram notification about you approaching your usage limit, you just dismiss it, right? Now, a study of 2,500 smartphone users tracked daily boredom episodes and found that the average person experiences 14 boredom episodes per day, each lasting 2 to 5 minutes. And participants report high distress when they're unable to fill the gap with a device. But here's what we miss out on when we avoid boredom: access to a powerful mental state called the default mode network, or DMN. We can think of it as the brain's creativity engine. When you're not focused on a task, when you're daydreaming, remembering, planning, or just letting your mind wander, this network lights up. It's the part of your brain that stitches together memories, ideas, and possibilities that aren't linked in any visible way to what you're seeing or doing right now. So this all goes on in the background. It only activates when you're not stimulated. So when you're bored, when you're thinking about nothing in particular, that's when your brain connects seemingly unconnected ideas. That's when you solve problems you've been stuck on for weeks. And this is when genius happens, and history proves it. Newton didn't discover gravity while reading. He discovered it while he was bored, staring at an apple tree. Einstein couldn't have developed the idea of relativity if he was constantly glued to his radio. He developed it during long, unstimulated walks. Kanye didn't create his best music while scrolling. He created it in silence on a remote island. They weren't geniuses despite boredom. They were geniuses because of it. Now you understand what boredom is, why it's essential for your most creative work, and how the geniuses of our past and present use it to accomplish things that average people will never achieve in their entire lives. And that's truly powerful. But understanding isn't enough. You need a system. And I'm going to introduce you to a 4-step system to reclaim your DMN. Here's how to unlock your genius potential and activate your DMN. It's actually stupidly simple. Step 1 is to schedule boredom blocks. This is not meditation, it's not mindfulness, it's just boredom. I want you to start small, then build a habit. So week 1, you start with 15 minutes per day, no phone, no TV, if you still watch that, no radio, nothing, no inputs, just 15 minutes. Then week 2, you're gonna aim for 30 minutes per day. And then week 3 and beyond, it's going to be 60 minutes per day. What happens during a boredom block is you let your mind wander. That's when the real thinking happens. You're not trying to meditate. You're not trying to achieve anything. You're just trying to be present or find your inner peace. You're just bored. And that's the point. Embrace it. It's gonna hurt, and it will feel like you're wasting time. It will feel completely useless. Your brain will scream at you to check your phone. Your dopamine system will beg for stimulation like an addict. You'll feel an almost physical urge to do something, but resist it. That's not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign you're doing it right. So just keep at it. Step 2 is to track your stimulation consumption. Once you've scheduled your boredom blocks, you'll need to protect it. This is where energy tracking comes in. Sounds a bit weird, but hear me out. Energy tracking is a simple system. You assign a unit cost to every activity in your day, then track how many units you spend. At the end of the day, you track how many units you have left. You can think of it like a bank account for your mental energy, and your daily budget can start at 1,000 units. I spoke about this before in a previous video about the 1,000 units model. Every activity you do costs a certain number of units. Now, if you look at the chart right here, you can see 3 columns: activity, unit cost, and an example. So you have deep work, which costs, let's say, 60 units per hour. Let's say that's painting, right? You have a meeting at work, that's 45 units per 30 minutes or per hour, however you want to organize that. Weekly team sync, right? That's 45 units. Decision making, 10 per decision, like choosing a new pair of shoes, 10 units. And most people don't realize how much energy making a decision costs them. Next, we have conflict or stress, which can be like 30 per incident. Workplace drama costs you 30 units. You have small stressors, 5 per event, and this can be something like checking notifications. And then you have your boredom block, which is 0 units. So this is gonna be your 15-minute no phone sit down, which costs you nothing. And here's how you use the ledger. I would encourage you to write, as in pen and paper, and you start the day with your daily budget, 1,000 units. You need to schedule your boredom block. So let's say it's gonna be 15 minutes after lunch. And then you're going to reserve 15 minutes for that block. It needs to be untouchable, okay? Now, throughout the day, you can log each activity and subtract its unit cost. The morning meeting can last 30 minutes and it costs you 45 units, right? So that means that you have 955 units left. Checking notifications, you ended up checking 5 for the day. That's 25 units, which leaves you with 930 units. Writing an article. So let's say this is what you want to do with your creative time, that this is an hour. That costs you 60 units, which leaves you with 870 units left. Your lunch break, which is the boredom block, 0 units reserved. So you still have 870 units, right? At the end of the day, you want to check your remaining units with the goal of at least 15 units left. Now, seems a bit weird, but here's why this matters. It makes the invisible visible. Most people have no idea where their mental energy goes. They feel exhausted at the end of the day, but they can't explain why. This ledger shows you exactly where your energy is being drained. It's like when you're trying to get your finances in order. What does your accountant or a personal finance advisor tell you to do? Start tracking your spending, right? That is the first step. So this is very similar to that. 2, it reveals your biggest energy hogs. You might discover that checking notifications cost you 50 units per day, 50 units that you could be using for something more productive. You'll probably realize that meetings drain you faster than deep work. Okay, what are you going to do about it? I don't know, it's up to you. Decision fatigue is eating up 100 plus of your energy units. How are you going to manage that? That's for you to decide, right? Once you see these drains, you can start to cut them and optimize them and move them around. And the third reason why this matters is that it guarantees you protect your boredom block. By reserving 15 units at the end of the day, you're making a commitment to yourself. No matter what happens today, I'm protecting this time for my DMN to work. When you see 15 units reserved for boredom block, you know you have the mental bandwidth to actually do the block. And when you do the block, your brain generates the insights that separates geniuses from everyone else. The third step is to batch your information diet. Now that you're protecting your boredom blocks and tracking your energy, you need to stop the constant inflow of stimulation. Most people graze on information all day. A notification here, a newsletter there, a quick scroll through social media, a podcast during the commute. This constant grazing keeps your dopamine system hungry and your DMN offline. Instead, you batch your information consumption into specific windows. 9 a.m., you check newsletters and emails for 30 minutes, and let's say that cost you 30 units. At 12 p.m., you listen to one podcast for 45 minutes, which costs you 45 units. 5 p.m., you read one long article for 30 minutes, maybe that costs you 30 units. Everything else, off limits. No checking your phone between these windows. no quick scrolls, and here's why this works. When you batch, you're doing two things. One, you're eliminating the switching tax. How this works is every time you jump from deep work to checking a notification, your brain pays a 23-minute switching tax. This comes from a study in 2015. And this means that a single text doesn't just cost you the 10 seconds it takes to check it and then go back to your work. It actually costs you 23 minutes of lost productivity and mental clarity. By batching all your information consumption into designated windows, you eliminate most of these switches. And then the second thing it does is you're protecting your DMN activation windows. Between your batched information windows, your brain has permission to enter the DMN. Without batching, your DMN never fully activates because you're constantly interrupting it with new stimuli. With batching, you create long stretches of uninterrupted mental space where genius level thinking can actually happen. This is why Newton, Einstein, Rowling, all these people produced their best work during periods of isolation. They weren't constantly breaking their focus. And the result is you get more done in less time. Your ideas are sharper. You actually feel less mentally exhausted at the end of the day. And you end up making better decisions. So that's like resisting junk food or things you're not supposed to be eating. So this strengthens your ability to say no to things. This is all because you're not paying the taxing switch over and over again throughout the day. An easy way to think about this is think of your attention as a light switch. One switch, the light stays on, it illuminates a room. You can think of this as your current task. When you flip the switch repeatedly, the light flickers and the room never stays fully lit. The flicker is the switching tax. The brief darkness is the lost focus each time you change tasks. If you keep the light on for a longer stretch of time, you eliminate more of the work you need to do and you avoid the energy waste of constantly turning it on and off. The fourth step is to protect your boredom like it's sacred. This is the final and most important step. Treat your boredom block like a non-negotiable appointment with yourself. Not a nice to have, not a when you have time. It needs to be a commitment. Here's how you protect it. You put it on your calendar, make it visible, treat it like a meeting you can't miss. Tell someone about it. Accountability does help. Put your phone in another room. Don't just silence it, remove it entirely because it's a temptation. Sit somewhere quiet, no distractions, no background noise, just you and your thoughts. Don't try to optimize it. You're not meditating, you're not journaling, you're not trying to solve a problem. You're just being bored. Let your mind wander and do whatever the fuck it wants to do. When you do that, here's what you'll notice. After a few days of practicing your boredom blocks, ideas will surface and it won't feel forced. It's not like you're trying to think, they just appear. That's your DMN working. You'll feel less anxious. The constant urge to check your phone will fade. Your nervous system will calm down. You'll think more clearly. Problems that seemed unsolvable will suddenly have solutions. Connections you couldn't see before will become obvious. You'll produce better work. Your writing will be sharper. Your thinking will be deeper. Your paintings will be better. Your music will sound better. Your creativity will just flow. It will feel like magic, but it's just neuroscience. This is what happens when you give your brain permission to do what it was evolved to do. Think deeply. Okay, so that's a lot. And unless you've been taking notes, it probably feels a bit jumbled up in your mind. But if you look at the screen, here is a table that gives you the full system that you can just pause and take a look and make your own notes. Now you have a system that can support your DMN and your creativity can flow so your genius can shine. You have the system, you understand the science, you know how the greatest minds in history leverage their boredom to become great. But understanding isn't doing. So here's what I want you to do. For just 7 days, try this experiment. Starting tomorrow or even today, schedule one 15-minute boredom block. No phone, just you and your thoughts. Do it for 7 days straight. Commit for 7 days. After each block, write down 3 things. One idea that surfaced, even if it seems random or incomplete. How your body felt. Does it feel restless, calm, uncomfortable? Third, the urge to check your phone. On a scale of 1 to 10, how strong was it? That's all. You don't think of it as journaling. It's not meditation. It's not optimization. You just need to pay attention and notice. Now, here's what I can promise you. By day 7, you'll have something most people will never have: access to their untapped genius. That's when everything changes. You will taste what it's like to think without interruption, to have ideas surface without forcing them, to access the part of your brain we like to call genius. You'll realize that the time you thought was wasted was actually the most valuable time of your day. And after 7 days, you'll face a choice. Do you go back to mindless scrolling, or do you want to make this a part of your life? That choice is yours alone, but I can tell you this: every genius in history chose to integrate it, and you can too. That's it for this video. If this helped you, tap that like button, subscribe if you haven't. Also, check out my newsletter, Base Reality. If you appreciate expanding your mind and exploring new ideas, the link is in the description. Thanks for watching.